War in the Badlands. 14 legions had been selected to face the Diamond Dogs. 14,000 ponies began marching towards the Badlands, led by Celestia and Luna. Thousands of ponies waited for them on the path towards the contested territory, cheering as their Empress, her war mistress, and her legions marched onwards to defeat the enemy. Luna seemed to enjoy the crowds, and Celestia was happy to see her sister's mood improving. Soon, the crowds died down and the land became barren, clouds of dust being the only welcome the legions had as they marched. Forests were replaced by dried shrubs, hills replaced by craggy rocks, and as the army continued on, Celestia thought that she could smell the presence of sweat coming from her legionnaires. "What kind of army would live in such a place?" muttered Luna as they continued their march. "I know of several, but they cannot affect this particular realm." Celestia crested another hill and surveyed the area. "We'll stop here for the night. Have the legions set up camps, and I want sentries posted on every high spot you can find. Place Pegasi in the clouds and prepare scouting parties to search for the enemy." "Yes, sister." Luna turned back to the group, shouting orders as she did so. Celestia continued her survey, her eyes sweeping back and forth across the desert before her. The area was flat, save for a small canyon at the very edge of her field of vision. A quick search through the immaterium turned up nothing, only a few disturbances that she passed off as latent emotions. She recalled her soul and kept looking, scanning the horizon once more for any sign of motion. "Don't stare at it too much, it gets tired." Celestia turned and saw the orange mare that had spoken several weeks ago, now clad in the white armor of the plains runners. "Why do you say that?" "I've lived my whole life out here, more or less," the mare answered. "Ma daddy always said the desert kinda mocks ya, since ya think there's something out there when there ain't. I've gotten used to it." "I see. Apologies, but I don't think I asked your name." "Name's Applejack," the legionnaire said, giving a polite nod. "I am in charge of the plains runners, guess ya already knew that." "Well yes, but I never talked to you face to face." "S alright, I don't mind. Ya probably had a lotta other important things to do." "True, but I prefer to have a close connection with my commanders, it helps to build trust and respect." "Well, I respect ya. I really appreciate what y'all are doing round here. I feel a lot safer now that there's some pony, well, a pair of some ponies rulin' Equestria, and to be quite frank I wouldn't like it any other way." "Well, I'm glad to hear that." Celestia began to walk back towards the camp, Applejack trailing behind her. "What else do you know about this area?" "Lotta canyons, and a lotta gems and other bits like that. My brother made a couple mines here and there, and they helped us through a couple bad growin' seasons before discord showed up." "Interesting. Any settlements?" "Well, a bunch of monks had a settlement a bit farther south, but they haven't really been seen since. Lotta buffalo, though, and they're nice enough as long as ya don't go diggin' up their cemeteries or their stampedin' grounds. We used to trade with 'em till discord showed up." "And then there's the Diamond Dogs." Celestia nodded before speaking. "My sister probably knows more about them than I do." "They are a problem." "Are ya kiddin'? They're always comin' up and stealing food and stuff so they can go and mine all them gems and stuff. Sometimes they come and steal ponies to pull their wagons and minin' carts." "And you know this?" Applejack hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "When I was a filly, a pack of 'em came and kidnapped me when I was comin' back from school. They threw me in some cave and had me pullin' carts for 5 years, then minin' the gems for another 5. I tried to break out, but while they ain't smart, they're pretty crafty, seems like they knew every single move I made. I gave up for a while till one day all the guards just died." "Died?" "Yup. All of 'em died, some looked like they were sleepin', while others were all torn up like a manticore'd gotten in. Well, I wasn't ready to face whatever'd killed 'em, so I bolted and kept walkin' until I found ponies again." "So that's why you raised a legion to fight at my side, you want revenge?" "Yes ma'am. I don't want any pony to go through what I did." "Commendable goal, but easily exploitable." "Pardon. I do not doubt your devotion, Commander, but you must not allow your thirst for vengeance to consume you. Another leader may turn that thirst towards their own goals, and you will feel empty once that task is complete. To fill that emptiness, you'll turn towards foe after foe until your entire life is consumed by revenge and hate. I wouldn't want that. Consecrate yourself against the silent manipulator, Applejack. They speak of well-meaning, but their very words betray them. Seek out truth and honesty amongst whomever you meet, and within yourself, because every pony has the power within them to judge gods. I really believe that. I know that it is true. Go and think on what I have told you. Thanks, Empress, I really needed that. Applejack gave a small bow and left. Celestia continued on before Luna approached her. Sister, the camp is almost ready and several Pegasi have volunteered for scouting tonight, the younger sister said. Call them here, I would like to see who volunteered. Luna nodded and used her horn to send a signal to the volunteers. Before we begin with this, one of the commanders said she wanted revenge for mistreatment at the hands of the diamond dogs. I know. There was a pause before Celestia spoke again. What do you mean, you know? I was the one who killed her captors. Luna replied, as if it were a rather minor fact. That may have been risky. I know, but it was under the cover of darkness, and they were in the middle of a desert. I see. I would be mad at you for meddling in the affairs of mortals, but it was a noble cause and produced a fine commander, so I cannot fault you. Thank you, sister. The two were interrupted by the sound of hooves on dirt as they were approached by 5 Pegasi, 3 Western Rangers and 2 Wonderbolts led by Rolling Thunder and Firefly. Celestia frowned slightly. This is it. I have 4 other groups of volunteers, all of varying sizes and mostly comprised of Pegasi. I decided to mix the legions a bit to promote cooperation. Good thinking. She approached the Pegasi. So, are you all capable night flyers? Forests get dark. Firefly said. And, well, we kind of got off on the wrong hoof, so I wanted to see if I could make up for that. I'm sure you can. However, I do not wish you to do something stupid. You are a commander, after all, and your example is reflected on your unit as a whole. I promise that I will not do anything irrational. If I do, you may execute me in any way you so wish. I will hold you to that. Wait until the cover of darkness before you move out. Yes ma'am. The 2 commanders saluted and left, Firefly striking up a small conversation with Rolling Thunder. Luna, send some pony to the supply tent and have them start sharpening stakes, preferably ones about 12 feet long. Sister, you don't plan to dash? Celestia quickly waved Luna off. Relax, I don't think anything will come of it. But I still want to be prepared in case we have to take extreme measures to show these diamond dogs who is in command of this region. I understand. This is stupid. They'll know something is up if they see a single cloud bank moving around. Firefly grumbled as she and the other Pegasi moved across the night sky, several clouds pushed under their hooves. Do you have a better idea? Rolling Thunder asked. Maybe we could hollow out some rocks or cacti and hide in those. Or we could actually use the rocks for cover. Rolling Thunder paused for a moment before shrugging. We're dealing with enemies that live underground, why meet them on their own turf? Commanders, one of the other rangers said. I don't think arguing over this will help us be stealthy. He's right, you know. Firefly said. Whatever, the ponies kept moving, with only the sound of the plates of their armor rubbing together being heard. Firefly shot a glance towards Rolling Thunder, eyeing the Wonderbolt for any signs that he may have spotted something. Seeing nothing, she turned back to the landscape, watching as rocks and shrubs flitted past. Hey, I think I see something, the other Wonderbolt said. Firefly and Rolling Thunder followed to where the Pegasus was pointing and saw a glowing light near the canyon they had spotted earlier that day. Okay, we ditch the clouds now and continue on hoof. She raised a hoof to silence Rolling Thunder before he could protest. Yes, we lose the advantage of flight, but this way we won't get spotted as easily and might have a chance to sneak up on them. Well, are we even sure that that's the enemy? It could just be a couple of traders camping for the night. True, but if they are, then we don't have to be all sneaky. Now come on, we're wasting time. Rolling Thunder sighed and kicked the clouds away, drawing his crossbow and descending to the ground. I hope you know what you're doing and not just trying to impress the Empress. If I was trying to impress her, I would have asked Dawn Sparkle to come with me. Rolling Thunder snorted and began walking, the other 4 ponies taking up position behind him as they snuck through the dark. Occasionally one of the Pegasi would fly up a little to scout ahead, a leapfrogging pattern soon developing. They continued like this for several minutes until one of them stopped. I heard something by that rock, the other Wonderbolt said, drawing his crossbow and aiming it towards the offending rock. I think it might be a diamond dog. Think does not mean no. We need to be certain so we don't go and shoot some pony in the face. Firefly said. Wait, does any pony here know what a diamond dog looks like? Asked the last ranger, a white Pegasus with a poofy blonde mane. The assembled legionnaires looked at one another, unsure of how to respond. They look like dogs. Firefly said, scratching her head. Well, I guess they'd have to be pretty big if they kidnap ponies. I should have talked with the plains runners and seen if any of them had fought diamond dogs before. Rolling Thunder sighed and lowered his head. All right, stay close and keep a sharp eye, I don't want some dog sneaking up on us when we're in the middle of a flat plain. What, do you think the dogs are a bunch of tactical Gen Dash? Shush! Rolling Thunder crept forward, moving slowly to minimize noise. When he was about 4 feet away, Firefly followed after him, sweeping her crossbow around to make sure nothing attacked. The 5 crept forward, and the sounds became more coherent and identifiable. 2 voices arguing with each other, over a matter that the ponies did not fully understand. Why we gotta watch all these ponies, the first voice said, a grating noise that caused Firefly's ears to ring. Cause Boss Dog wants all the ponies to be there, the second voice said. He likes 'em like this, yes. But they're stupid, ponies don't run away, so why watch them? Ponies stupid, but ponies got wings and horns and stuff, yes? They cause trouble, yes. Then we break horns and wings off. Ponies don't need them. There was a pause. Guess that'd work. We tell Boss Dog about this, yes. His companion would never get the chance to respond before a crossbow bolt split his head like an overripe watermelon, the corpse flailing about before falling over. The diamond dog turned to face this intruder, but Firefly delivered a powerful kick to his chest. The dog fell back, but was caught by Rolling Thunder and the other Wonderbolt, the 2 ponies holding their prisoner down while Firefly drew her gladius and advanced. So, you know where we can find some ponies around here? She asked, twirling the sword around for a moment. Ponies can't fight back, the dog whined. Oh really? I suppose you're used to us cowering in fear when you raid farms and smash down doors. She rested the sword against the diamond dog's neck, the creature giving a small whimper of fear as the blade touched his fur. So, me and my friends are kind of lost, would you be so kind as to give us directions to your buddies so we can pay them a visit? Boss Dog wouldn't like that, Firefly frowned before a thin smile spread across her face. Nice eyes, she said, raising her sword slightly. Be a shame if anything bad happened. She looked towards Rolling Thunder, who looked back at her in confusion. Taking that as a sign to go ahead, she flicked the point of the gladius into the diamond dog's eye, the creature screaming as steel pierced soft tissue. Firefly, are you insane? Rolling Thunder hissed. What? He needed motivation to talk. You can't just go about torturing things, even if they hurt other ponies. And since when did you become the moral judge? Firefly turned to the wounded diamond dog, aiming the sword at the dog's good eye. Now, would you like to go 2 for 2? Pony is bad, the dog wailed. I think we've established that fact. Now are you going to tell us where your friends are? And no. Guess you'll have to find your way back without your eyes. Firefly drew back before the diamond dog cried out. That way. It's that way, the dog pointed towards a larger collection of lights. Pony will stop hurting me, yes. Firefly looked to where the dog was pointing. It may have been a trap, but it was a better lead than nothing. Fine. She put her sword away and turned towards the lights. Get rid of him. How? I don't really care how, just get rid of him. Rolling Thunder looked at the other Pegasi before speaking again. Get me some rags." The blonde ranger nodded and pulled out several strips of pink cloth. Rolling Thunder took the strips and began to bind them across the diamond dog's head, making sure to cover both the dog's eyes and nose. Satisfied, Rolling Thunder pulled the diamond dog up and turned it towards the desert. "Now, walk in that direction, and don't take the cloth off until we say so. Now, off you go." The dog nodded and began walking, stumbling slightly over bits of rock. Once it was out of sight, Rolling Thunder turned to Firefly. "What?" she asked. "I won't tell the Empress about this as long as you promise me to never do this again," he said. "Is that a threat?" The Empress has a very low tolerance for things she deems unsatisfactory. How do you think she'll react? Firefly opened her mouth, but an image of a sharpened stake flitting through her mind made her think better. "Okay, no more torture. I'll be a good little filly from now on." Firefly puckered her lips a little and looked at Rolling Thunder as if she were an innocent foal. The commander of the Wonderbolts looked at her for a moment before shrugging. "I'll hold you to that. Let's get moving." Firefly resumed her normal composure and the 5 ponies made their way towards the lights. There were a few more scares, the blonde Pegasus being a bit more jumpy than what was previously let on, but they were able to reach the lights without much incident. The source of the light was a small bonfire, where a collection of a dozen diamond dogs was seated. Some of the bulkier ones were armored, but they seemed to be armed only with a stone-tipped spear or two amongst them. Some were sleeping, but most were talking amongst each other, passing a small bowl of something between themselves. Behind them were a collection of cages, but the legionnaires could not see what was inside. "Okay, 12 of them, not much in the way of weapons." Firefly raised her crossbow and ducked behind a rock. "I think we can take them." "Think" being the key phrase. "We don't know if these crossbows will work against that armor," Rolling Thunder said, placing a restraining hoof on Firefly. "Well, we've got a lot of bolts and some spare time, I could go for some target practice." "Hey, I think they have ropes," the blonde ranger said. Firefly looked and saw a couple of crude lassos lying on the ground near the biggest dog. "They must use those to catch ponies," Firefly said. "So, and a pony got a plan. I think we need a distraction," Rolling Thunder said. "What?" "We can get in and get out without any of the dogs knowing we're here, and without having to fight them, if we have some pony draw them away for long enough. What we need is something loud, loud and fast." There was a pause before the 2 commanders looked at the blonde Pegasus. "Corporal Surprise?" Firefly asked. Surprise looked at Firefly, smiling happily. "Yes, Commander." "Hey! Hey! Over here!" "Hey!" The diamond dogs looked and saw a white Pegasus waving at them. "Hi! Here I am." "Hey, it's a pony," one dog said, leaping to his feet. "Boss Dog likes ponies. Let's get it." The dogs let out a howl and charged at Surprise, the Pegasus giggling a little before taking off in the opposite direction. Once they were gone, the other 4 Pegasi, slowed slightly due to carrying Surprise's armor, snuck into the camp. "I can see why you chose Surprise to come with us," Rolling Thunder said. "She and I grew up together," Firefly said, collecting any discarded weapons the dogs left behind. "I think she enjoyed sweets a bit more than what is normal for a pony." "And by that, you mean orgasmic?" "Oh," Rolling Thunder shuddered slightly. "Well, let's get this over with and get back to camp before the dogs come back." "Agreed." The 4 ponies began to sweep the camp, grabbing anything that would help the diamond dogs if there was a fight and tossing what could be burned into the fire. A few herbs were gathered from a sack on the far end of the camp, and any weapons that the dogs may have left behind were broken and scattered. Then came the cages. Due to poor lighting, the Pegasi could not see if they were occupied or not, even when they closed in. The cages themselves were made of rusting metal, haphazardly cobbled together in a vaguely cage shape. A bunch of latches and ropes held the doors close, and the ponies could see a few small insects gnawing at the fibers of the ropes. "I've seen landfills cleaner than this," Firefly muttered. "You'll have to tell us about that some other time." Rolling Thunder continued to inspect the cages until one of them moved, catching the Wonderbolt off guard and causing him to trip over a log. The cage moved again, and they could see a pony moving around, eyes and legs bound with a dirty rag. Hello? Is someone there? The pony asked. Yes, we're here. Firefly said, approaching the cage. Are you okay? Why yes, I think so. Are you here to help us? Us. There's others in the cages. You'll help them. Yes, yes we will. Firefly drew her sword and began to saw at the rope, turning slightly towards Rolling Thunder as she did so. See if you can break the other locks. Rolling Thunder nodded, advancing over to the next cage. Stand back, this might shatter. The ponies inside the cage nodded and got back as far as possible as Rolling Thunder swung his sword down, the blade easily splitting the rusted metal. Freed of their prisons, the ponies rushed forward, embracing the legionnaires and weeping with joy. Rolling Thunder managed to break free of the newly freed prisoners and looked towards Firefly. What are we going to do with these ponies? I'm sure the Empress has plans if we saved ponies. Now all we need to do is find Surprise and we can get back. Here I am. The 4 legionnaires looked and saw the white Pegasus standing on the other side of the camp. Surprise? You're back. Last time I checked, the Pegasus said, looking around. What happened to the diamond dogs? Rolling Thunder asked. Oh, they're still chasing me. What? The ponies were interrupted by the sound of diamond dogs howling. Firefly spotted them charging towards the camp, clouds of dust rising into the air as they rushed forward. Damn it, Surprise! Firefly hissed. Of all the ways you could have screwed this up, you had to choose the way that gets us all killed or captured. Well, now you can see if we can take them. Rolling Thunder rose into the air, a rope twisted around one foreleg and his sword at the ready. Surprise, get your armor on and guard the civvies. We'll hold them off. Firefly drew her own sword and grabbed a piece of wood from the fire. As the first dog charged into the camp, Firefly hurled the wood at the attacker, sparks and charcoal flying into the air as the piece of wood exploded against the dog's head. 2 more rushed in, sweeping at the ponies with their massive paws, but Rolling Thunder easily sidestepped and bucked the lead diamond dog in the face. He spun around and brought his sword down on the second dog's head, causing it to stumble and trip into the fire. The other dogs hesitated, and Rolling Thunder saw his opening. He rushed forward, twirling the rope on his leg into a loop. One dog tossed a spear at him, and he was forced to dodge and deflect the spear with his sword. He rose into the air and started circling the diamond dogs, his wings pumping as hard as possible to build up enough speed. The diamond dogs clumped together, thinking that Rolling Thunder was intending to attack. Smiling, the Wonderbolt tossed the rope, allowing the pull of the miniature cyclone to pull the rope around the dogs. He increased his speed before pulling tight, the rope binding the dogs together and causing them to collapse in a heap. Where did ponies come from? The biggest of the dogs yelled, thrashing to get away as Rolling Thunder and Firefly applied more ropes. Cloudsdale, if you're interested. Rolling Thunder said, finishing off the last of the knots and pulling the diamond dogs to their feet. All right, douse the fire and make it seem like we were never here. These doggies have a date with the Empress. Celestia was meditating, allowing her body to rest and her soul to drift through the immaterium. There had been some disturbances, but nothing that could have threatened her or her legions. She sighed, calling her soul back to her body and stretching her wings. She was taken out of her meditative state by the sound of some pony entering her tent. She turned and saw a young earth pony, a Trottingham knight, with a small kettle and cup balanced on his flanks. Empress, the pony stammered. What is it? Well, I saw you sitting in here alone, and, well, I thought that maybe you'd like some tea, or something, you know, to calm down. Celestia rose, walking over to the legionnaire. The pony, for his part, managed to not cower in fear and awe as she approached, but he was still shaking at the thought of upsetting the Empress. I'll take it away if you don't want it. You don't want it, right? I never said that. She kneeled to get at eye level with the young knight. This was a thoughtful gesture, and I thank you for that. It would be rude of me to not accept it. Oh, thank you, Empress. Celestia smiled and grasped the kettle and cup in her telekinesis. Relieved of his burden, the knight bowed and left, still shivering from the potential disaster that could have happened. I have to find a way to make them more at ease around me. She muttered, pouring some of the tea into the cup. Yes, fear is a good way to instill respect, but then they'll start being irrational to win my favor. She sighed and raised the teacup to her lips, warm liquid slipping past them and down her throat. Celestia was very old, and therefore had experienced things as simple as drinking tea millions of times over. But in that instant, sitting out in the desert with her legions, something that small and insignificant provided more pleasure for her than anything she had experienced in a very long time. Her wings fluffed involuntarily and her entire body warmed considerably, and her lips curled into a smile as she took another sip. I must find that night and get this blend. She chuckled before blinking at what she had just said. Wait, since when have I cared about tea blends? I'm an empress, not a spice merchant. I'm supposed to be planning a war. But it was still rather pleasant, she sighed and shook her head. I really must be getting old if I break down over tea. Sister, your presence is needed. Luna called from outside the tent. Celestia set her tea aside and exited, joining her sister as the two made their way towards the south end of the camp. Was it such a problem that you couldn't handle it yourself? Celestia asked. Well, the legionnaires asked for you, specifically. Luna shook her head. I think they are still getting used to the idea of my title of War Mistress. Anyway, one of our scouting units rescued several ponies and took prisoners, and they want to know what to do with them. Prisoners, so soon? Guess this campaign won't be as difficult as we thought if the dogs let themselves be captured so easily. This may be but a one-time occurrence or a stroke of luck. We cannot count on this happening again, lest we become complacent and allow the enemy to slip by us. Luna was silent until the two sisters reached the prisoners. Rolling Thunder and Firefly were hovering over the 12 diamond dogs, the Wonderbolt giving the Western Rangers commander a weird look. I hope you are not doing this to impress me. Far from it, if I wanted to impress you I'd have tried to get more. Celestia rolled her eyes and looked towards the prisoners. How did you come across them? They had this camp and a bunch of ponies in cages. We decided to deal with that. Firefly answered. Glad to see that you are taking initiative. Untie them. They could try to escape. Rolling Thunder said. I doubt they could defeat me, my sister, and 14,000 legionnaires. Untie them. Rolling Thunder hesitated for a moment, but nodded before moving to untie the diamond dogs. Celestia unstrapped her sword and tapped the tip against the ground, allowing the energy field to ignite for intimidation. The dogs flinched a little as energy crackled down the blade of her sword, and she smiled slightly at their fear. Your fear shows your weakness. A good soldier would have consecrated themselves before facing an enemy leader. Pony is weak, not us, the lead dog said, just before Celestia tapped her sword against the diamond dog's chin, fur sizzling slightly against the energy field. Letting yourself be captured by half your number, that is a real show of your strength. You are my prisoners now, as such it is within my power to do whatever I please with you. She removed the sword from the dog's chin, still keeping it visible in case her prisoners tried anything. Now, who is your commander, and where is he? Commander? What is commander? Who hired you to come out here and kidnap my subjects? What was Luna thinking when she made creatures this stupid? We's not hired, and we's not stealing ponies. We're protecting them, yes. Celestia was not amused. From what? Big Lizard. He lives over in town that way. The dog pointed off to the southwest. Eats dogs and ponies, yes. Lizard? You mean dragon? Yes. Big flying lizard. There was a pause before Celestia smirked. I've faced worse. But if you were trying to protect these ponies from dragons, why would you put them in cages? We didn't. Then how come my soldiers say you did? Are you calling them liars? Yes. Celestia looked at Rolling Thunder and Firefly. Want us to fly back and get the cages for you? The Western Rangers commander asked. There's no need for that. But, if you would be so kind as to fetch me a steak, that would be appreciated. Yes ma'am. Firefly left while Celestia turned her attention back to the diamond dogs. I don't suppose you have any stories about some pony capturing others they found less desirable, do you? And no, the dog answered. Well, I do. See, a long time ago there was a stallion, I can't quite recall his name. Now, he was a ruler of a stretch of land, and he used his power to maintain order and stability throughout his territory. One day his land was invaded by an army. This army sought to destroy everything he believed in, and he was determined to keep them away. Now, he was outnumbered, so how could he fight against this army? Celestia smiled. Terror, that's how, make the enemy think that they were not fighting a mere stallion, but a daemon from the deepest pits of the immaterium. And he was very effective at what he did. A band of the enemy strayed away from the main force, and he captured them. Instead of executing them by the axe or the noose, he got creative. She smiled again when she saw Firefly return with a large stake, nearly 7 feet in length and sharpened at both ends. I was there, observing how he did away with those that opposed him. Some he would kill and have their heads mounted on spears, while others would be impaled while they were still alive. It would take days to die, stuck up on those stakes with no food or shelter from the elements. I am a curious mare, and from what I learned the pain is excruciating. And, he was a bit unhinged, so he did this more than you would like to know. Pony is lying. Am I, now? She turned to Firefly. This one doesn't seem to be very cooperative, he goes first. Firefly spun the stake around and advanced towards the diamond dog, but intimidation had taken its toll. Boss Dog told us to get more ponies, the dog whined, trying to make as much room as possible between him and Firefly. Said ponies are weak and won't do anything, yes? We catch them and bring them to him, yes. Where is he, this boss dog? At least they're more sensible than orcs. Well, small mercies are welcome. That way, the diamond dog pointed back to the southwest way, that way, pass Big Lizard. He's big, lots of dogs and bulls and birds and stuff. Lots does not give me an accurate representation. How big is his army? More than this, lot more than this. Lots of dogs. Celestia turned away, deactivating her sword and returning it to the clamp on her flank. We move out as soon as possible. She shouted so that all of the legionaries could hear. Have cages built for the prisoners and make sure they are held at least 4 feet off the ground at all times. Plains runners and black ravens will scout ahead for any signs of enemy activity. I want a company of soldiers to escort the refugees back to the border immediately. Yes, Empress. The army continued its march through the desert, traveling during the early hours of morning and just before dark so as to conserve as much energy as possible. Attempts by the Pegasi amongst the legions to create more cloud cover failed, and Celestia had to dissuade Rolling Thunder from trying again and depleting his strength. They stopped near another canyon for a day to allow the company escorting the refugees to return, and within 2 days the legions were back as whole strength. The army was camped on a plateau, giving them a clear view for miles around. As per her orders, the diamond dog prisoners were placed in cages that had been suspended from a series of poles and wooden planks, members of the siege breakers guarding them at all times. The dogs were content to stay put, doing their best to not draw the wrath of Celestia and her legions. The idea of a dragon being out there troubles me, Celestia said as dawn rose. Why? I thought you said you could defeat a dragon. Luna said from her position next to her. True, but the last time I did so was thousands of years ago. She unhitched her sword and walked out of the camp. I'm going out to find that dragon and kill it if necessary. I'm going with you. Luna grabbed her swords and started to follow, but was stopped by a golden hoof tapping against her chest. No, I need you to stay here. Sister, if you think that it's too dangerous dash. Far from it. Remember your position as war mistress. I need some pony here to maintain control over the legions. But you might be killed. That is a risk I have to take. Do not follow me. Celestia spread her wings and took off, flying off over the horizon. Luna hesitated at the perimeter of the camp for a few moments, unsure of how to proceed from there. She doesn't trust you or your skills. The voice said. If she didn't trust me, she would have left me back at Everfree. And risk having you swing the country into your favor? No, she wants you out here, where your status as a figurehead is more advantageous to her. I am not a figurehead. Her status as Empress deprives you of any power. Have you ever been able to give your own orders? No. You always have to run suggestions through her instead of deciding what is best for you and those that you care for, do you not? Yes. Why put up with that? You are powerful, and your words should carry more weight than they do. But she said that my words have the same weight as hers. And you honestly believe that? You are powerful, they should carry more than just your sister's authority. Yes, yes they should. I'll ask my sister for more responsibilities once this campaign is over. Don't wait, take the responsibility for yourself now. No, that is going too far, I would betray the level of trust that my sister has placed in me as her second in command. Why? She does not trust that you can take care of yourself. But I am not as strong as she is. I've already lost one wing and I won't risk myself anymore. You lost your wing because your sister is weak. She wishes for you to stay behind her so that you cannot develop into the true ruler you are capable of becoming. What are you saying to me? Celestia landed and looked around. More dust, but she had managed to find signs of ruins amongst the rock. Sword at the ready, she followed the ruins, finding small wall fragments and bits of carved rock as she went. Small fragments became large, and soon she was standing in the ruins of a city, walls and roofs having collapsed from neglect and looting. Icons and other small statues of her and her sister lay half buried and broken, and altars of dedication lay overgrown with dried plants. This must be the city Applejack told me of. She walked on, her boots crushing smaller bits of rock under hoof. This has been abandoned longer than even she realizes. Why? She walked on, stopping a few times to inspect the damage. There was no sign of damage caused by weapons, and the only skeletons she found were of small animals. The only hoof prints she could see were her own, the desert having reclaimed any similar signs. However, in her searching she allowed her guard to drop. She neared a crumbling chapel when there was an earth-shaking crash. The force threw her to the ground and knocked the sword out of her grasp, and small rocks rained down on her. She coughed a few times before recovering, her sword reigniting as she grabbed it. She swung around to face the threat, coming face to face with a giant pair of yellow eyes. A pony? This far south? Celestia blinked as the newcomer reared up, showing itself to be a massive dragon with emerald green scales and golden claws. The same could be said for you. Celestia said, keeping her sword at the ready. I assumed dragons preferred colder climates. I am free to go wherever I please. I am not limited by such trivial issues like borders or habitat. The dragon replied. You, however, are much more interesting. There haven't been ponies this far south in quite some time. I presume you know what happened to this group. If you assume foul play, I can say I am not responsible. The dragon relaxed and lay down before Celestia, its massive head resting mere feet from her. Put away your sword, and we can talk like civilized beings. How do I know you don't have allies hiding amongst the ruins to capture me? I care not for slaves or wars. That's part of the reason why I am here. Not much lives out here, and I may rest in peace. So you are just here to rest? Until I get tired of this area and move elsewhere. Celestia paused for a moment, testing the flow of the warp to see if the dragon was lying. When she detected no deception, she slowly put her sword away as the dragon snorted, a small cloud of smoke filling the air. Now tell me, pony, why are you here? First, I am not mere pony. I am Celestia, Empress of Equestria, and I am here to reclaim this land and the ponies that have been taken here. Reclaim? This land was never taken away, so why reclaim it? It has fallen into the sway of those that would see my ponies their slaves. I intend to destroy them all, as they have incurred my wrath. Bold statement. Perhaps you may be able to help. You know this land, so you must have seen something. I do not meddle in the affairs of nations and rulers. It matters not which army is where and who is in control. I come and go as I please, and I am not ruled by any empress or king. So you will not help me. I don't see why I should. This is your war, not mine. All wars affect those that claim to be uninvolved. You may think you are safe in your home, but soon raiders and thieves will come to steal from you, and with no force to stop them then they will continue to press against you. I shall have to avoid them. But the world is shrinking around you. A day will come when you can no longer stay out of what is going on around you, and you may very well be forced into conflict with either my ponies or some other group. You cannot stay neutral forever, so now is your chance to decide who to support. You say that with such conviction. And what if you fail? If I do, then I fail, you have nothing to lose in this. Yes, I do. I let you come through here, and within months you will have your own treasure hunters and raiders come here to steal my hoard. I trade one annoyance for another. I doubt it will come to that. I swear upon my honor as Empress that I will send Nopani to steal what belongs to you. How do I know that you will hold up your bargain? You may come to Everfree and strike me dead if you find any pony with orders from me to raid your hoard. I will need more assurance than that. Very well. Look into my eyes, and tell me what you see. The dragon looked at Celestia for a moment before scoffing. Is that it? Yes. Look into my eyes. If you see any deception or ill will, I will leave. The dragon snorted again and made eye contact with Celestia, the two staring at each other for some time. However, staring directly into Celestia's eyes had some disadvantages, for therein lay the clearest view of Celestia's true power and majesty. None but her sons or the mightiest of Eldar could look into her eyes for very long, with many other having turned away with pain or nausea after their attempts. Celestia had found a way to mask the effect shortly after Luna was born, but now she allowed the full of her power to be on display. The dragon did not seem to be affected at first, its eyes locked on Celestia. But, as time wore on, she could see changes. The dragon's eyes dilated to take in less information, small muscles began to twitch to avoid contact, and signs of fatigue came on faster than normal. She maintained her composure so as to not look smug before speaking. Well, I must say, you are a very interesting pony. The dragon chuckled again before breaking direct eye contact. You are in possession of an impressive amount of power, more than I've ever seen in any mortal. I am no mortal. I gathered, your wings and horn denote your relations to the gods. Far be it for me to oppose their will. The dragon rose up and looked towards the south. 2 miles in that direction is an army, probably 40,000 diamond dogs. They come here sometimes to try and find my hoard, but they are easily fooled. They do have a large collection of mercenaries, mainly griffins and minotaurs, but not enough to be a dominating force. Any fortifications? None that you and I would think of as fortifications. Their leader is more interested in digging and wealth than actual military coherency. You seem to know a lot about war for someone who claims to avoid meddling in nations' affairs. Just because I do not fight wars does not mean I cannot study them. This is all the information I will give you. It will suffice. Celestia bowed and turned, preparing to head back to the legions. She paused before taking off, looking around the ruined city she and the dragon were resting in. This is a fine city. I would like to see it restored, with your permission. You need not ask for my permission, the dragon said. I am leaving soon, to where I don't know, perhaps Napan. They seem more peaceful than equestrians. Do with this city whatever you wish. May you be safe in your travels. Celestia spread her wings and took off, watching as the city and dragon shrank into the horizon. Another day's march, and the army had arrived in the city. Some of the legionnaires, especially the plains runners, had gotten to work rebuilding, and soon some of the old cathedrals and housing had been repaired. The legions were glad to have better shelter from the sun, and Celestia and Luna welcomed the chance to have somewhere to plan. From what I've been able to gather, Celestia said, laying out a map on a makeshift table, the enemy is somewhere near this canyon. She circled an area of land south of their current location. Where exactly I don't know, but we shall find out soon enough. I doubt they will stay there and allow us to build up our forces. Luna said. Their leader is, by all accounts, nothing more than a particularly nasty mining boss. The only advantage he has over us is numbers. By how much? One of the assembled commanders, Icewind, asked. At least 3 dogs for every 1 pony, and that is not including mercenaries. There was a chorus of murmurs amongst the commanders. Attacking a force that size head-on? We'd be routed, even with better armor and tactics. Dawn Sparkle said. I have a plan. Luna, Celestia looked to her sister. I want you to take the Lunar Knights, Black Ravens, and Drake Guard to this point here. She jabbed at a ridge several miles to the east of where the Diamond Dog camp was supposed to be located. When the battle begins, wait 10 minutes before advancing against the Diamond Dog's flank, that should cut off their chance of retreat. How will I know when to begin counting the 10 minutes? I will signal you when the time comes. Now, the remaining legions will assemble thusly, the Celestial Guard, myself included, will be in the center, with the Daughters and Arctic Wolves flanking left and right respectively. The Western Rangers, Stalliongrad Guards, and Trottingham Knights will make up the second rank, and the Iron Hooves will be in the rear on the left. The ever-free Sentinels and the Siege Breakers will be held in reserve for artillery support and to protect our own flanks. What about us? Rolling Thunder asked, pointing to himself and Applejack. The Plains Runners will be deployed on the far left, with instructions to intercept any cavalry charges the enemy may make. Cavalry, ma'am. Buffalo, specifically, the dogs may have hired out or forced some of the tribes to act as shock troopers. Applejack whistled. Not much that can stop a buffalo stampede, Empress, she said. You are faster and they are most likely not wearing armor. Should they launch a charge, I want you to attack from the rear and sides. Sure thing, Empress, I won't let ya down. Rolling Thunder, Celestia looked at the commander of the Wonderbolts. I want you to gather all your Pegasi together and find somewhere high from which you can observe the battlefield. If and when the enemy's main force charges, I want you to take your legion and attack the enemy from above. Reloading on the fly is pretty difficult, Empress, we may only be able to make one pass. That may be all we need. Before we finish this meeting, I would also like to discuss the high chance of mercenaries that the enemy may deploy. But we've already talked about Buffalo. Don Sparkle said. I'm not speaking of Buffalo. I speak of griffins, minotaurs and other creatures like that. Give a minotaur a club and some scraps of metal for armor and you'll need 20 ponies to take him down. Icewind said. We get raiders from time to time up north, and while one's bad enough, fighting an entire tribe of them is murder. That was before I gave you this armor and better weapons. Celestia countered. True, but it still won't be an easy fight. And then there's the griffins. Rolling Thunder said. They're just as fast as a Pegasus, and much more aggressive. They could very well intercept us before we finish our pass over the army. I trained you to be proficient in both ranged combat and melee, you should be able to defend yourself if you are attacked in such a manner. Celestia looked at the group as a whole. Now, is there anything else we would like to discuss for the spies? Spies? Luna raised an eyebrow in confusion. What spies? Celestia's horn shimmered and the farthest wall collapsed inward. 3 diamond dogs hovered in Celestia's telekinetic grasp, flailing around helplessly to get free. These spies? They've been hiding outside for close to 10 minutes. How did Pony know? The lead diamond dog cried. I am a psychic of unmatched skill, I sensed you nearing the camp several hours ago. Celestia brought the diamond dogs closer. So you must have heard everything I said just now, right? Yes. Then I can't risk that you may get back to the enemy. Luna, she passed 2 of the diamond dogs over to her sister. Have these 2 executed immediately, and make sure it is quick. What of the other? Luna asked. I have a very special mission for him. Celestia, Luna, Icewind, and Applejack made their way across the desert, the diamond dog spy leading them towards the enemy camp. To make sure the dog could not spill their entire plan to any potential foes, Celestia had had the dog gagged and manipulated the warp in such a way that his vocal cords would not work properly. Icewind and Luna had called her paranoid, but otherwise raised no objection. As for how they were sure that the dog was leading them in the right direction? As it turned out, the mind of a diamond dog is very simple, and easy to bend to one's will. A quick suggestion from the Immaterium had made the dog a very useful puppet. Why exactly are we doing this again? Icewind asked. I need to make sure that this is actually a viable threat, and not just a trick by some pony to remove an annoyance. Celestia answered. But they are a threat. Applejack cried. If they are, then we will also be able to gain vital intelligence. I've had my fair share of manipulators pointing me at their own enemies, and I don't want that to happen again. Right, Ya told me about that. What makes you think that they will let 4 ponies just walk into their camp completely unopposed? Icewind asked. I wouldn't have gone out like this without a bargaining chip. She nodded towards the captured diamond dog. Unless they are completely selfish, they wouldn't want to see one of their own in the care of an enemy. And what if they don't care? 2 of the most powerful ponies to have ever lived, a mare with a long-lasting grudge, and a battle-hardened northerner against several thousand diamond dogs? I think we'll be okay. If you say so. The 4 walked in silence for a few minutes, their captive leading them on. As they went on, an odd smell began to drift through the air. The 2 commanders looked around in confusion while Celestia and Luna advanced undisturbed. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, Icewind said. But what is that smell? That. Celestia raised a hoof towards a pile of decomposing animal corpses. Some had been partially eaten, while others were covered in so many flies and other insects that they were unrecognizable. Icewind and Applejack looked slightly disturbed at the sight, but managed to regain their composure quickly. We must be getting close. Prepare yourself. Icewind nodded and unhitched his axe, keeping the head low and out in an attempt to look less threatening. Celestia pushed the diamond dog captive forward, the dog only offering minimal resistance as the ponies advanced. Soon a camp appeared, although calling it a camp was being generous. Most of the shelters were little more than holes and miniature strip mines, with only a few genuine tents off to one side. What diamond dogs she could see were in no particular order whatsoever, with most lounging around or fighting amongst each other. She straightened up and continued on, the other ponies pulling closer together for better protection. The diamond dogs paid them little mind at first, going about their daily routines as if nothing was unusual. Soon, though, 1 or 2 began to take notice and grab weapons in vain attempts to prepare for an attack. Celestia and her entourage stopped 10 yards away from the camp and watched as a small group of dogs assembled. Shoddy weapons. Icewind said. Maybe this won't be as hard of a fight as I thought. Many have died saying the same of different enemies. Celestia mumbled. She turned her full attention towards the camp and spoke. Which one of you do you recognize as your leader? She shouted. What is Pony doing here? One dog responded. I have captured one of your comrades. She said, lifting the captured diamond dog up with her telekinesis. Perhaps you would like me to return him. Well. Boss dog doesn't like ponies taking dash. Unless he has stirred my wrath, I have no ill will towards him. Celestia thought she heard Luna chuckle, but dismissed it as irrelevant. Now, would you be so kind as to call your leader and perhaps we could discuss a few issues? Yes, Pony. 2 dogs broke off from the group, hurrying into the camp as fast as their absurdly short legs could carry them. Celestia released the dog ensnared in her telekinesis, allowing it to drop unceremoniously to the ground. The other dogs flinched as their comrade hit the ground, and Celestia failed to prevent a small smile breaking across her face. None of the dogs ventured any closer, although some would sling poorly worded insults at the ponies. Icewind and Luna exchanged a few glances, but otherwise the equestrians did not react. A few more minutes passed before a larger diamond dog walked out of the camp, followed by several others dressed in shoddy armor. The leader was wearing a bleach-white cow's skull for a helmet and an eye patch over the right side of his face. He clutched a crude club with several spear tips tied to one side, and a few larger scraps of metal were all that could be considered armor. I presume you are the leader of this particular group? Celestia asked. Yeah. The dog rumbled. What does Pony want? Well, first I wished to return one of your spies. She shoved the diamond dog towards the leader. The freed dog scampered away, tail tucked between his legs. Now, on to different matters. Several of my colleagues have claimed that you have kidnapped several of their friends and relatives. So, perhaps you would be so kind as to release a few. Celestia was interrupted by the leader laughing. Stupid Pony thinks she can come here and boss me around. The other dogs joined in on the laughter. I ain't giving any ponies back, they're mine, fair and square. Since when were they yours to take? They come around here like they own the place, but this is my land here and I take whatever I want. Then I presume you captured the ponies in that ruined city to the north. The dog looked at Celestia. I didn't steal no city pony. They're all soft, big on their books and their pretty stuff. You're soft too, thinking you can just walk here and start bossing me around. Me? Soft? Yeah. What are you gonna do, shine me to death? Talk some more. Celestia's gaze darkened. Know your place. I battled against the forces of chaos and saved this world from being turned to ice. I have killed more creatures and abominations in single battles than you have ever killed in your entire life, and should you continue to dismiss me in such a way, I will show you the full power of my wrath. This only caused the diamond dog to laugh harder. Stupid shiny pony thinks she can intimidate me? You ain't so tough, you just want me to think you're tough, so I'll do whatever you want. Well, I'm not gonna be bossed around by some pony. The dog raised his club. Get out, or I'll use your head as a footstool. Icewind raised his axe to prepare for an attack, but Celestia shot him a glance and he backed down. She looked back to the diamond dog's leader, her gaze still as hard as before. You have chosen your fate. The last thing you shall see will be my blade sweeping through your neck. Celestia turned and walked away, the others following after, exchanging a few glares with the diamond dogs. We shall marshal the legions and attack at dawn, she said as the diamond dog camp receded into the distance. But what about the spy? Luna asked. Your enchantments won't last very long, and then they'll know about our plan. I've taken a couple precautions. Celestia's horn shimmered before there was a tremendous explosion. The other three ponies turned and saw that part of the diamond dog's camp had caught fire, with numerous dogs rushing to put the flames out. Warp flame is so amusing when used creatively. Celestia chuckled and kept walking, the others following slowly behind her. Dawn. Shadows dotted the landscape as the sun rose higher into the air. A few desert birds stirred from their roosts, and small animals ran to and fro in an attempt to find food before the sun forced them to retreat to their shelters. And it was on this day, in the shadows of dawn, that two armies marched to war. Luna's force had departed sometime during the night, vanishing into the darkness as if they were never there. Celestia had the legions assemble soon after, and they were already on the move as the sun became visible over the horizon. She marched at the front of the army, her sword drawn and her body glowing with power, an impressive sight amongst the rocks and dust. 14,000 ponies, clad in a wide spectrum of color, led by a glowing avatar of all that Ponykind represented. The sound of hooves trotting on stone and dust mixed with the sound of armor plates knocking together could be heard for miles, a foreboding sound that would have chilled the hearts of any pony that heard it. Before them was the Diamond Dog Army, a seething horde that stretched across the horizon. Like their leader, most were dressed in thrown-together armor and armed with makeshift clubs and spears, shambling forward in no particular order. The dogs howled battle cries and banged their weapons together, the sound of the horde drowning out all others. Behind them several hundred griffins hovered, their silence in stark contrast to the bellowing horde. The diamond dogs stopped advancing, their howls and battle cries reaching a crescendo. The legions halted their advance, standing in silence as they watched the enemy force. Celestia looked about her soldiers, and saw some of them exchanging nervous glances with each other. "Do not allow your fear to rule you," she said, looking over her forces. "They think that fear is their ally, that it will break you down and cause you to flee. Let us show them the true meaning of fear." Her horn lit up as 4 red streaks shot up into the sky, the streaks exploding in a shower of light. Luna watched as the 4 streaks exploded in the sky. She finished strapping on her armor and turned to her appointed legions. "Prepare yourself," she said, drawing her swords and rising into the air. "My sister has sent the signal, and we must be ready to attack. Gather your weapons and armor, we move out in 10 minutes." The legionnaires nodded and scrambled to get into formation, pulling on any spare armor and weaponry that may have been forgotten. "Soon you shall show the world what you are truly capable of." "Perhaps I shall." Luna was so focused on preparing her forces that she was unaware of a second voice calling out from the void, one that had gone unnoticed by any other being capable of peering into the warp. In the early years of her time as Emperor, Celestia had been called paranoid by many of her fellow commanders. She did not see it that way, preferring to think of it as preparation for any challenge that might present itself. Now, she hoped that such planning would pay off. Behind the main formation of the legions, the siege breakers had set up a line of light catapults. Normally such an arrangement would be impractical, but the mass of diamond dogs was so condensed that any impracticalities were nullified. As soon as Celestia's signal exploded in the sky, the Legion had launched their first salvo at the enemy formation, dozens of heavy stones hurtling towards the opposing force. The diamond dogs stopped their howling long enough to watch as the stones arched through the air. They had even less time before the stones impacted the ground, crushing any unlucky enough to be beneath them to a bloody paste. The stones bounced and skipped through the enemy formation, smashing limbs and staining the dirt with red. The dogs recovered just as the second salvo hit, screams of the dying replacing any lingering battle cries. "Interesting," Celestia muttered, her expression stony and reserved. "Empress, look!" one of the celestial guard said, pointing a hoof towards a cloud of dust rushing towards them. Celestia squinted and saw a small group of buffalo charging towards the legions, heedless of the bombardment ravaging the main force. "There is no need to worry, the plains runners have the situation under control." She nodded towards a second cloud of dust rushing to intercept the first. Applejack's heart pounded in her chest as she and the other plains runners rushed forward. The charging buffalo paid them no mind, focused entirely on the main force. This allowed the plains runners to get right alongside them without being noticed, a perfect position from which to attack. Normally Applejack would have called to her fellows, but she felt as though there was no need for it now. She merely glanced over her shoulder at the other ponies and nodded, unclipping a crossbow and twisting so that the bow was aimed over her shoulder at the buffalo stampede. She slowed a little to steady herself before firing, the bolt whistling through the air before striking and burying itself deep in the buffalo's neck, the hit throwing up a splash of red and sending the buffalo tumbling head over hooves into the ground. The rest of the plains runners fired and more buffalo dropped, the once intimidating charge breaking up under volley after volley of bolts. The plains runners pressed against the charge, redirecting it so the stampeding enemy would not cause a major impact in the battle. Crossbows were swapped for swords as the ponies closed in, using their smaller size and superior training to duck between the buffalo and take out key individuals with quick strikes. Some, lacking room to get between the combatants, leapt up on the backs of some of the buffalo, stabbing downward at their opponents. The buffalo charge had been defeated, and the Empress of Equestria was preparing her next move. Another signal, and the legions began to advance slowly while the siege breakers continued their bombardment. Finally deciding that they had had enough, the diamond dogs let out another howl and charged forward, heedless of the siege breakers' attacks. The Griffin mercenaries hung back, content to let the diamond dogs grind themselves down before moving in. High above the enemy, Rolling Thunder finished his final preparations. His armor fully secured and his crossbow primed, he turned to the rest of the Wonderbolts, the Pegasi ready and awaiting his orders. "Remember, we only have enough time for one pass, two if we're lucky. Keep your wing ponies in sight at all times, and do not under any circumstances engage a griffin in single combat. Check your targets before firing and don't try anything fancy." The Pegasi nodded as Rolling Thunder turned his attention to the battle, watching as the diamond dogs slowed to skirt the buffalo corpses. "For the Empress!" he shouted before diving, the entire legion following. 1,000 Pegasi, clad in blue and gold armor, diving towards the diamond dogs like rain falling in a storm. The angle from which the Wonderbolts attacked meant that the diamond dogs could not maneuver to deal with this threat properly, even if they did have ranged weapons. The Pegasi pulled up slightly to prevent from crashing into the ground, and after a few moments they fired. Rolling Thunder raised his crossbow and fired, the bolt hitting a large diamond dog in the eye. His target flailed and hit several other dogs, who were trampled under the rush of their fellows. The other Pegasi fired to similar effect, although some had to dodge to avoid incoming bombardment from the siege breakers. Rolling Thunder reloaded as quickly as possible and fired again, the bolt going wide and snapping upon striking a rock. He pulled up and circled around, taking a moment to survey the situation. The Wonderbolt's attack had broken up the diamond dogs a little, but they were still charging towards the main force. One group of griffins was now moving up to intercept the ponies, while the other continued to hang back away from the fighting. Rolling Thunder reloaded and rose into the air, preparing to face off against the new threat. "All units converge on those griffins," make sure they stay as far away as possible from the main force. Celestia stopped, raising her sword into the air. The legions halted as well, with unicorns and Eniponi wielding a crossbow moving to the front. The diamond dogs had recovered from the bombardment and the Wonderbolt's attack, and continued their mad charge towards the equestrians. Now she could see several other creatures interspersed between the diamond dogs, minotaurs, towering over even the largest diamond dog and wielding massive clubs and axes. These mercenaries roared as they charged, sometimes pushing or trampling diamond dogs in their rush to reach the enemy. Celestia smirked and turned her head slightly. "Fire at will! Aim for the legs and torso!" she shouted before swinging her sword down. As her blade descended, every unicorn and crossbow that had a clear shot fired, a wall of light rushing towards the enemy. High-energy spells punched through multiple diamond dogs before exploding, the heat generated by the explosion melting armor and eyes. Crossbow bolts tore into flesh and bone, leaving deep wounds and sometimes severing limbs from bodies as they sailed through the sky. Diamond dogs tripped over their fellows, some even impaling themselves on scattered weaponry, and the attack stalled long enough for a second salvo of spells and crossbow bolts to hit. In the center of the equestrian forces, Celestia had begun to build up power. Her eyes glowed and her armor sparkled as more and more power was drawn from the immaterium, the sheer volume she was drawing upon being enough to kill even the most powerful psychers, and for a brief instant she wondered if perhaps she was drawing in too much power. That instant vanished when she released her energy. A solid beam of light shot from Celestia's horn and struck the diamond dogs. Any foe that was standing directly in its path was instantly carbonized, their bodies crumbling to dust and being carried away in the attack. The beam scythed through the massed ranks of the diamond dogs, killing and blinding dozed upon dozens of them. Even the blood-crazed minotaurs stalled upon seeing Celestia release her power, allowing the other ponies time to adjust their aim and pick them off with precision shots. With the diamond dogs' assault breaking up, Celestia turned to the legions. "Forward! Strike them down and purge them from this realm!" Her horn shimmered and Celestia vanished, reappearing with an explosion amongst the diamond dogs. She waded into the horde, her sword sweeping through diamond dogs as if she was cutting through air. Armor offered no protection, bone and tendons no support, all torn asunder by her wrath. She leapt into the air and launched a stream of warp flame at the enemy, some diamond dogs being roasted alive while others were reduced to vapor. She dove and struck the ground, kicking up dirt and broken bodies before pressing forward, her armor becoming stained with red as she fought on. Her legions, inspired by her attack, fired one last salvo before charging, swords, spears, and axes at the ready. The ponies slammed into the diamond dogs at full speed, the two forces hacking and stabbing at one another in brutal melee. The ponies' momentum allowed them to slice through the ranks of the diamond dogs, pressing through and routing those that were lucky enough to survive. Ahead, Celestia continued to plow through the enemy, stopping only to fire blasts of warp energy and get an idea of where her forces were. "Flee, for judgment has fallen upon you!" she bellowed, calling down a strike of lightning amongst the diamond dogs. Icewind buried his axe in the chest of a diamond dog, the heavy blade almost cleaving the enemy in half. He yanked the axe out of his opponent and swung it around in a wide arc, catching two more diamond dogs and relieving them of their heads. His grey armor now flecked with red, Icewind surged forward, the rest of the Arctic wolves forming up and charging after him. He leapt over a fallen buffalo and swung his axe downward, splitting another diamond dog in half and knocking another into the dirt. Icewind ducked as a diamond dog swung for him before spinning around and bucking, his hooves catching the dog beneath its chin and sending it reeling backwards. There was a roar from farther back and Icewind saw a minotaur charging forward, the best swinging its club in wide arcs and knocking away both ponies and diamond dogs in its rush to attack him. Icewind cracked a small grin before charging, raising his axe for a downward strike. The minotaur saw this and swung its club, the heavy head missing Icewind by inches. He pressed on and struck, the axe cleaving off a large chunk of flesh with every strike. The minotaur swung again, this time hitting Icewind and knocking the commander into a group of diamond dogs. Two more Arctic wolves drove off the diamond dogs and allowed Icewind to recover, the commander grabbing his axe and pulling himself up on his hooves. The minotaur snorted and charged, bringing its club up for a downward strike. Icewind raised his axe as the Minotaur attacked, his axe blocking the Minotaur's club before it struck his head. The two combatants pressed against each other, weapons groaning under stress as telekinetic aura and muscle tried to force the weapons apart. Finally something gave and the Minotaur's club slipped out from under Icewind's axe. As the Minotaur tried to recover, Icewind swung down and buried the blade in his opponent's skull, the Minotaur roaring in pain and staggering back to try and pry the axe out. Icewind stepped forward and grabbed the axe, pulling upward and ripping the top of the Minotaur's skull off. Blood splattered on Icewind as the Minotaur collapsed, the Arctic wolf advancing towards another group of diamond dogs. All in all, it was a good day to serve the Empress. Dawn Sparkle batted away another spear and stabbed the offending diamond dog in the face, her white coat staining pink with the enemy's blood. She shoved the corpse of her enemy off her sword and looked around, searching for another target. She spotted a few diamond dogs attempting to sneak away and charged, whipping her gladius around and stabbing down towards the diamond dogs. She ducked between combatants, hacking and slashing at anything that was not a pony. Something hit her in the side, causing her to lose her grip on her sword and fall to the ground. Her attacker pounced on her back, claws and teeth scratching against her armor. She rolled over and punched the dog in the face, knocking it away and allowing her room to get back up. She and the diamond dog circled, searching for openings from which to attack. They never got the chance, for as the diamond dog circled a crossbow bolt tore out its throat. The dog flailed about and Dawn saw Firefly, the Pegasus grinning smugly as she lowered her crossbow. "I had the situation under control," Dawn said. "Sure you did." Firefly smirked. "You owe me for that, you know." Dawn Sparkle raised an eyebrow before hurling her sword at Firefly. The Pegasus ducked, allowing the sword to fly over her and stab the diamond dog that had been sneaking up behind her through the chest. Firefly turned and blinked, her mind having shorted out from the sudden attack. "No I don't," Dawn Sparkle said, smiling smugly before yanking her sword out of the diamond dog's corpse. The griffins that had not yet joined the battle hung back behind the diamond dogs, waiting for the best opportunity to move forward without taking many casualties. They hovered over the ground, exchanging glances with one another as they watched the battle unfold before them. Some chatted about unrelated topics, while others made last-minute checks on their equipment. The griffins were so focused on the battle ahead that they failed to spot Luna's force coming up behind them. The legions advanced quickly, their hoof steps being drowned out by the sound of battle and allowing them to sneak up on the griffins. Luna shot her commanders a few glances before drawing her swords and advancing, flying low to the ground to avoid detection. "You can do this, Luna. You will show your sister that you are a capable leader." She nodded slightly and began to draw in power for her attack, wisps of energy collecting around her as her horn shimmered. It was not the same level as Celestia's attack, but it was still enough power to cripple or kill a lesser pony. Her eyes glowing, Luna launched her attack at the griffins, catching the mercenaries off guard as a ball of lightning exploded amongst them, bolts arching through bodies and weapons before the bodies of the target griffins shattered like glass. As the enemy turned to face this new threat, Luna shot into the air and struck out with her swords, the blades ripping through flesh and armor with ease. The griffins had no time to recover and broke, flying away in an unorganized mass and leaving the diamond dog's rear completely exposed. "Come!" Luna shouted, pointing a sword at the enemy force. "The enemy is exposed and ripe for the taking. Forward my legions!" For Equestria, the soldiers returned her cries and advanced, crossbow bolts and spells flying forward and tearing into the diamond dogs. Now being attacked from the rear, the enemy was thrown into confusion as the two forces pressed against them, some dropping their weapons and running in any direction to escape the blades of the ponies. The battle was ending, the diamond dogs broken against the might of Equestria. Celestia strode forward, her coat and armor stained red and her sword crackling with energy. A small knot of diamond dogs stood before her, with the leader of this group placing his lessers between Celestia and himself. She glanced past him and saw Luna approaching, the younger pony not nearly as battered as she was but still flecked with dirt and blood. She smirked, for the briefest instant she did not see her sister but a man dressed in silver and gold armor, happy to serve and fight alongside her. She dismissed her memories and approached the diamond dogs, her sword raised for an attack. Your army has fallen, but surrender now and you will be spared. Asking enemies to surrender was not exactly her normal response in war, but coming to this realm had made her a bit generous. No. I'm still here, and I won't be bossed by some pony. The diamond dog charged forward, swinging his weapon wildly in an attempt to take off Celestia's head. She shrugged and held forth her sword, allowing the club to strike against it as the energy field bisected the weapon, the two halves collapsing to the ground. The diamond dog looked in shock as his weapon was destroyed, unsure of how to proceed. Power weapons, Celestia said, smiling. You should have attempted to look into them. She brought her sword up and swung, the blade passing easily through the diamond dog's neck and knocking his head away. Before the corpse had collapsed to the ground, the other diamond dogs had thrown down their weapons and started running away as fast as possible. Celestia watched as the enemy army fled, deactivating her sword and clamping it back on her flank. I take it this battle could have been worse? Luna asked. Any battle could be worse, but hopefully the diamond dogs will no longer be a threat. She turned towards her sister. Go and have the soldiers gather up our dead. They'll be taken back to Equestria for proper burial. Yes, sister.